Autumn had settled on the Midwest, and despite our reputation for brutal winters, this time of year was absolutely breathtaking. It was Saturday, November 3rd, 2012, and at a glance, you'd think it was going to be a picture-perfect day. Though the morning temperature was in the low 40s, the sun was rising on the dew-covered grass, and the crisp air seemed to awaken the neighborhood in unison. Our family's quaint quad-level home, where we had lived for 17 years, sat on the corner lot. Within its walls, Mom and Pops had hosted high school graduation parties, birthday celebrations, Thanksgiving dinners, and memorable get-togethers. And in the home office, where my parents operated their professional counseling practice with precious care, marriages had been restored and many lives, young and old, given focus, compassion, challenge, and empowerment. To this day, when I envision a place of peace and rest, it's that house. The literal blood, sweat, tears, laughs, and sacrifices that built and rebuilt that house from the inside out made it our haven. It wasn't elaborate by any stretch, nor was it perfect, but it was perfectly ours. Just across the street on that November morning, the sun's reflection shone on the tiny lake. The fiery colors of autumn blanketed the trees in the background. Trust me when I tell you that you haven't seen beauty until you've been to Michigan in the fall. If you don't believe me, book a trip here and witness it for yourself. As I stepped off our front porch to go for a quick walk, our neighbor Lynn, with coffee in hand, sauntered to the edge of her driveway to retrieve the newspaper and waved in my direction. "Morning, Chris," she exclaimed. Have you ever been so deep in thought that you don't even hear someone talking to you? This was one of those times. "Chris, morning, honey," she called in her soft, quintessential Midwestern tone. I waved back. "Morning, Lynn. Hope you and Tom have a good day." Truth be told, I wasn't lost inside my mind. I was drowning there. Allow me to explain. That particular Saturday was my birthday, and it became the third worst day of my life. You see, 4 weeks earlier, doctors had sent my mom home without any further medical recourse. At the age of 55, she was fighting for her life after a nearly 2-decade battle with multiple myeloma, a rare, medically incurable form of cancer. With tears in her eyes, my mom's oncologist placed her into hospice care, the very organization for which Mom was once the bereavement coordinator. If you're unfamiliar, when someone is placed on hospice, death has been declared imminent. Despite this prognosis, our family was relentless in our pursuit of healing. Sobered by the medical facts, we were equally anchored in and focused on the truth of the scriptures. Our God is a healer. We were tired, but we weren't giving up hope for a miracle. People had told us to stop playing, quote, the faith game, and instead face the facts. But this was no game. Through weeks of sleepless nights and tear-filled days, we poured ourselves into her care, often ignoring our own needs to provide for her in the most personal and intimate ways while protecting her dignity. Because Pops, hero that he is, worked 3 jobs for nearly 20 years to keep the family out of medical debt, my sister and I were on rotation, sleeping in our parents' bed to cover the arduous night shift with Mom. Our love was stronger than any embarrassment or shame at her total dependency, because her worth, value, dignity, and beauty were not clouded by the terrible disease destroying her outer shell. Though Mom could barely speak or even keep her eyes open, multiple myeloma was not her identity. She was not cancer. And that's why I was internally distracted when Lynn called my name that morning. I was hoping that when I got home from my walk, somehow life would be good again. That all of this would be a bad dream. But it wasn't. I hated that day. I hated my birthday. When I returned 15 or 20 minutes later, I went upstairs to tend to Mom, who was barely conscious. I asked her, "Mama, do you know what today is?" She shook her head no. It's my birthday. Do you know how old I am today? She whimpered. 135.